John chapter 11 this morning, in John chapter 11. This great chapter, the principal event in this chapter is the raising of Lazarus. Jesus receives word from Lazarus' sister, Mary and Martha, that he was ill in verse 3. And he says in verse 4, Jesus heard it said that this illness does not lead to death, it is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it. He waits 2 days later before deciding to go on to Judea and go and visit Lazarus' grave at Bethany. An amazing statement is made in verse 11 where he talks about Lazarus' death and he likens it to being asleep. He says in verse 11, after these things he said to them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go to awaken him. He travels on to Bethany, and there he meets Mary and Martha and those assembled to mourn Lazarus' death. And there we begin to see more glimpses into the humanity of Jesus, how he wept, how he mourned, how he was deeply troubled in his spirit over the things that were taking place. And in verse 38, I'd like to read. It says, then Jesus, deeply moved again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it. Jesus said, take away the stone, Martha. The sister of the dead man said to him, Lord, by this time there will be an odor, for he has been dead 4 days. Jesus said to her, did I not tell you that if you believed you would see the glory of God? So they took away the stone, and Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I said this on account of the people standing around, that they may believe that you sent me. When he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The man who had died came out, his hands and feet bound with linen strips, and his face wrapped with a cloth. Jesus said to them, unbind him and let him go. From that moment forward, some of the Jews believed, but others, they began to see the signs and began to be afraid, as it says, that the Romans would come and take away his place. So they began to more actively seek to kill him. And as a result, Jesus no longer walked openly among the Jews. Guys, what do you see in this text?
Well, verses 5 and 6 are always a little bit curious because Lazarus is somebody that Jesus loved, and yet when he hears that he's ill, he doesn't immediately go to deal with it, to heal him. Instead, it says that he waited 2 days longer. And we might ask, well, why does Jesus do this? Well, I think the answer is in verse 4. Jesus understands the bigger purpose of all of this. His illness doesn't lead to true death, but it leads to the glorification of God. And I think that's a really important idea for us to see. Jesus knew that Lazarus' illness and his physical death and the struggling of his sisters was going to lead to the glory of God. And I think we need to view our suffering through that same lens. If we can view life through the glory of God, then it's going to change the way that we think about our suffering, because our suffering then can lead others to see the glory of God.
Amen. Mark?
In verses 25 and 26, Jesus asked a question when he arrived to Bethany and saw Martha, the sister of Lazarus. He asked her in verse 25, where he said, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this? That's the question all of us have to ask. In any difficulty that we go through in life, do we believe that Jesus is the resurrection of the life and the life? When we lose our job, when we lose a loved one, when we suffer through sickness, do we believe that Jesus is the resurrection of the life? And the interesting thing is, not only is it a question, it's the answer. Because when you ask your questions, the answer to your question is Jesus is the resurrection and the life. And that's how we get through them. Important question and an important answer.
Great applications, guys. If you see anything in this text, it's a rich text. We barely touched, really, the hem of the garment. If you have any thoughts, put them down in the comments below. We'd love to hear and be taught by you. If you have any questions, please put those down in the post as well. We'd love to interact with you and talk about this one who is the resurrection and the life. Thanks for joining us today, and have a great day.